Welcome to the Great American Road Trip Hard Mode. 20 questions, none of them easy. Grab a pen, keep score, and let's get moving. So, to kick things off, which city served as the eastern terminus of Route 66 when the road was first established in 1926? The answer, Chicago, Illinois. Fun fact, the exact starting point was Jackson Boulevard and Michigan Avenue, and those original Route 66 street signs are still standing at that corner today. Same spot since 1926. Here's one for you. What is the total distance in miles of historic Route 66 from Chicago all the way to Santa Monica? And it's 2,448 miles. Fun fact, if you drove it non-stop at a steady highway speed, you'd be behind the wheel for over 40 hours straight. That is not a weekend trip. Alright, number 3. Route 66 passed through 8 states, but which single state had the most miles of the original road running through it? Here it is, Missouri with around 317 miles. Fun fact, Missouri's stretch includes the Chain of Rocks Bridge over the Mississippi River, a genuinely crooked old bridge that's become one of the most iconic photo stops on the entire route. This next one is a history question. What year was Route 66 officially removed from the United States highway system? That one was 1985. Fun fact, Williams, Arizona, the very last town on the route to be bypassed by an interstate, held an actual mock funeral for Route 66 when it happened. A full ceremony. I respect it. Okay, switching it up. The Blue Ridge Parkway begins at Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. Which national park does it connect to at its southern end? So, Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Fun fact, the parkway took 52 years to build. They started during the Great Depression and didn't actually finish until 1987. 52 years for one road. Number 6, and I genuinely love this one. US Route 50 crosses the state of Nevada and picked up a very famous nickname along. Here's the reveal, the loneliest road in America. Fun fact, that nickname came from a 1986 Life magazine article that was essentially a warning telling people to stay away. They said the road was so desolate that survival skills were required. Instead of putting people off, it turned Route 50 into a bucket list destination overnight. Best accidental tourism campaign ever. Alright, question 7. The Going to the Sun Road is one of the most dramatic mountain drives on the continent. Which national park is it located in? And that is Glacier National Park, Montana. Fun fact, the road is so narrow in certain sections that any vehicle over 21 feet long is completely banned from entering. And it took 11 years to build, carved directly into the face of a mountain. 11 years. This one's very specific. Somewhere along the 2,448 miles of Route 66, a tiny Texas town sits at the exact geographic midpoint of the road. Which town? The answer to that, Adrian, Texas. Fun fact, fewer than 200 people live there. The Midpoint Cafe was shut for years and nearly torn down before new owners stepped in and rescued it. Now it pulls in road trippers from all over the world. Moving on, the Natchez Trace Parkway runs 444 miles from Natchez, Mississippi, up through Alabama and into Tennessee. Where does the northern end of the trace finish? Okay, so Nashville, Tennessee. Fun fact, Andrew Jackson rode this exact same corridor after the Battle of New Orleans in 1815. The route has been used continuously for over 8,000 years. You're driving on genuinely ancient ground. Halfway mark, and this one catches people out. What is the actual longest United States highway by total mileage, stretching roughly 3,365 miles coast to coast. Here we go, US Route 20. Fun fact, most people guess Route 66 or one of the interstates, but Route 20 runs quietly from Newport, Oregon, all the way to Boston, Massachusetts, and holds the record. It also passes through more state capitals than any other US highway, the underrated overachiever of American roads. Number 11. The overseas highway hops across the Florida Keys on a chain of bridges. What city is sitting at the very end of the road? It's Key West, Florida. Fun fact, the highway was built on the skeleton of a railway that was completely wiped out by the Labor Day hurricane of 1935, still the most intense hurricane ever to make landfall in the United States. Engineers looked at the wreckage and said, let's make a road. Altitude time. Question 12. The Beartooth Highway runs along the Wyoming-Montana border and climbs to an extraordinary height. Roughly, how high does it get at its peak? The answer, 10,947 feet at Beartooth Pass. Fun fact, at that elevation it can snow on any single day of the year. People have been caught in genuine blizzards up there in the middle of July. Charles Carroll once called it the most beautiful drive in America, and it is very hard to argue. Okay, here's a good one. What is the name of the highest paved road in the entire United States, topping out at over 14,000 feet in Colorado? So the answer, the Mount Evans Scenic Byway. Fun fact, mountain goats and bighorn sheep just wander onto the road near the summit. You are driving at 14,000 feet above sea level and there is a goat standing in your lane completely unbothered. Total power move by the goat. 14. There's a stretch of highway in Colorado between the old mining towns of Ouray and Silverton, known by the nickname the $1 Million Highway. Which official US route number is it? And that's US Route 550. Fun fact, the origin of that name is genuinely still debated. It's either the gold ore in the road fill, the cost of construction, or as some locals put it, no amount of money would convince them to drive it in bad weather. Given that certain sections have sheer cliff drops and zero guardrails, I completely understand. Change of pace? Question 15. A 1991 film follows two women driving a 1966 Ford Thunderbird convertible across the American Southwest on a journey that changes everything. What film is it?
Let's see it, Thelma and Louise. Fun fact, that famous scene at the end where the car goes off the cliff, not the Grand Canyon. It was filmed at Dead Horse Point State Park in Utah. Worth knowing for the next time someone brings it up.
Question 16. The Pacific Coast Highway near Big Sur passes over a stunning concrete arch bridge, completed in 1932. What is it called?
Here's the answer. Bixby Creek Bridge. Fun fact, it has appeared in so many car commercials and TV shoots over the years that California's Department of Transportation actually had to start restricting film crews from using the location. At some point, every car ever manufactured had been photographed on that bridge. A little history for 17. The Lincoln Highway was established in 1913 as the first coast-to-coast road in the United States. Which two cities did it connect? That one, New York City to San Francisco. Fun fact, the Lincoln Highway was largely funded by Carl Fisher, the same man who built the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, America's first great highway and its most famous racetrack, bankrolled by the same person. He just really liked going fast. Nearly there. Question 18. After driving all 2,448 miles of Route 66, you finally arrive in Santa Monica, California. What specific landmark officially marks the end of the road? The answer is the Santa Monica Pier. Fun fact, the end of the trail sign on the pier wasn't even installed until 2009.
So, for the vast majority of Route 66's history, people drove the whole thing and there was no sign at the finish. You just arrived at the ocean and that was it. 19. The tail of the dragon at Deals Gap on the Tennessee-North Carolina border is famous for packing an almost absurd number of curves into a very short stretch of road. How many curves? Alright, the reveal, 318 curves in 11 miles. Fun fact, at the entrance to Deals Gap there is something called the Tree of Shame, a tree covered in broken fairings, handlebars and other parts from crashed motorcycles and cars, hung there as a warning and a trophy at the same time. Over 1,000 motorcycles pass through on busy summer weekends on an 11-mile road. Last one. Final question. In 1962, a celebrated American author published a memoir about driving across all 48 contiguous states in a camper truck with only his poodle for company. Who wrote it?
And the final answer? John Steinbeck, Travels with Charlie. Fun fact, Steinbeck named his camper truck Rocinante after Don Quixote's horse. That truck still exists. It is on permanent display at the National Steinbeck Center in Salinas, California. The actual vehicle. And he won the Nobel Prize in Literature that same year. Not a bad 1962. And that is hard mode done. Drop your score in the comments. I want to know how you got on. Hit like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.